Well, good morning and welcome back. How exciting is this? I know this is my favorite day. I've been doing this for 3 decades, but we won't talk about that. And how exciting it is on the first day when you come back and you get to see all your friends that you haven't seen all summer. You got to catch up, all the kids that went off to college, all those things, and now you've done it, and now you're ready to go, right? All right, well, we got, I hope, an exciting program. But here's the first thing you need to know. I'm not David McCullough. I'm sorry. I know he's here, so there's no pressure on me at all to have to perform, but we'll do our best today. So we have an exciting program, I hope, for you. But we're going to do it as efficiently as possible, because I know the one thing that's really on your mind is, can I get back to my classroom and get it going, and let's get going, right? They can take a clap on that one. I know you want to get there. And thank you. I really want to get back to my office because I got things to do. No, I'm just kidding. I'm so excited to be here. And I want to say that I think it was almost 10 months ago, 300 days ago, give or take a couple of days, I interviewed for this position for the first time. So this has been the longest transition in the history. And so I have been thinking about this day for 300 days. And the good news, or the bad news, is I've written at least 8 different speeches. The bad news is I've thrown them all away. And so I'm going to do my very best today to, hopefully all of us will, to inspire you and to really be thinking about the year ahead, and the excitement just grows from here. So that's what we hope to do today. All right, so we do have a full lineup of things. We have some speakers for you that probably are your normal lineup of speakers. I will end with a convocation message for you all, and then we'll get you off. I know that right after that there's going to be an HEA meeting, and so you have lots to do. So the first thing I'll do is say, I am Paul Austin, by the way. Was there anybody in the room that didn't know that? Don't raise your hands. That would really be embarrassing. So here's the thing, I've been really practicing on names. How many people are out there named Mary? Raise your hand. Look, I've got your names down already. All right, so thank you for all of you who have introduced yourselves to me. My name's a little bit easier to remember than all of yours. But it is a goal of mine to at least get to know you better, and I've been able to be here since, I think, June 17th to do that. It's been a very, very busy summer of exciting work and getting to know more about Hingham. And as I said, it was a long transition, but it really did give me a time to understand a little bit about more of this town, about your school system, and now I just can't wait to get going. Because I'm a structure guy, so I'm better. As soon as Tuesday happens, we get students in here, I don't know about you, I'm ready to go. Let's get this done, let's get the regular thing, and now I don't have to sleep in every morning. It's really harsh. I know the last people that come in, you ever see the last people that come in for these meetings? They're like dragging in, they're like, somebody's like pulling them along going, yes, we got to get to the door. Anybody like that yet today? No? I got you, thank you, thank you. It is true. So the first person I'm going to introduce you today is your HEA President, June Gustafson.
Good morning and welcome to Dr. Austin, Dr. Labilois, Dr. Vinnis, members of the school committee, our chair, Michelle Ayer, Vice Chair Carlos Da Silva, Carrie Nee, Ness Correnti, Liza O'Reilly, and our building administrators, department directors, teachers, counselors, and our nurses. And a very special welcome to our new educators and new superintendent, Paul Austin. Will all the new teachers stand with Dr. Austin, please, and be recognized? We're thrilled you're here. At this time, I would also like to recognize the Hingham Education Association e-board. These members work hard to keep all of us in the loop, and the team that makes my job look easy, and actually makes it easier. Our Vice President and bargaining team member, Carrie Beth Sorokoff. Our PR and our 6 through 12, grade 6 through 12, and bargaining team member, Pat Tomasak. Our PR PR and R pre through 5, Boris Samarov. Treasurer and membership, Meg Melanson. Our secretary, Bev Vernon. Our negotiations chair, Tom Melanson. Our Plymouth County Educators Association liaison, Paula Flanagan. This next board member has a lot of jobs, but she is our communications and webmaster. She also does political education and is the rep for Hingham High School, Jacqueline Brupre. And we like to have fun, so our social and scholarship chair, Chelsea Vangel. Our Hingham High School rep and bargaining team member, Gary Forrester. Our Hingham Middle School reps, Betsy Orcutt and Barbara Kahane. Our representatives from East School, Luke Dodge and Vera Neville. From Foster's, Heather Anderson, Sarah Vogel. And from PRS, Tracy Blake and Julie Harrington. And from South, Patty Van Merlo, Katie Campbell. And in addition to the e-board, I'd like to introduce the other members of our bargaining team, Melissa Goldman, Caitlin, who's from the middle school, Caitlin McGinnis from South, Lori Lucas from East, and Nancy Busey from PRS. Please all stand and be recognized. Are we not following directions? Okay, I teach 6th grade. I deal with that many times a day. Thank you very much. The Roman philosopher Seneca once said, "Every new beginning comes with some other beginning's end." And so it is with us. We would like to take a moment to honor one of our own, a daughter of Hingham, friend, wife, mother, and teacher, Alison Clarke, who lost her battle with cancer this past summer. Alison was also a student in Hingham from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. If our Global Citizen program had been around back in the day, Alison would have been a strong part of that community. Joining me are her childhood friend, all the way from kindergarten at PRS, Chrissy Swanson, and members of the following members of the Foreign Language Department: Erica Dieselman, Chair, Corey Ford, Suzanne Weiss, Pat Tomasak, Katie Shapiro, Trista Fossey, Ariane Swearingen, and Kim Canny. If you were present at Alison's wake or funeral, you may remember the following adjectives on a picture describing her as a mom from Alison's 3 sons. These attributes are not just great qualities for parents, but transfer to educators with great fluidity, and it's why we come back today, or as my foreign language department say, les raisons d'être. Did I get that right? Okay, good. If you guys can come up and share those words with us.
Kind. Brave. Strong.
Fun.
Very nice.
Funny.
Caring.
A fighter.
Super awesome.
So let's take a moment and reflect on our purpose as educators, and to honor our friend and colleague Alison with a moment of silence. Okay, one of the best aspects of education is the beginning is always today, every day. And I would like to welcome Michelle Eyre, our school committee chair, for her to make some remarks for us.
Thank you so much, June. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm honored to be here this morning representing my colleagues from the Hingham School Committee. They are Carlos De Silva, Carrie Nee, Ed Schreier, Liza O'Reilly, Libby Lewicki, and Ness Carenti, as we welcome you to the 2019-2020 school year. We'd also like to welcome Dr. Austin to the Hingham Public Schools. As most of you, other than our newest members, know, Dr. Gallo left us a legacy of excellence, and we are very excited for Dr. Austin as he supports you in maintaining that legacy. Because on those days when you think maybe it doesn't matter, I just wanted to remind you that it does. I have a little story to share. A couple of weeks ago, my son Evan was home for a visit before heading back to school to begin senior year in college. And for those of you who know him, like senior year already, I can't believe it. Anyway, we spent a few hours downtown. We took a class at Cycletown, and we went over to Assembly to get him some new clothes, stopped at Nona's for ice cream. You know, we went to Cycletown, we earned it. While we were sitting on this bench eating our ice cream, this young family walked by, and they were looking at the real estate listings at Coldwell Banker. And to my surprise, my son Evan called over to them, and he said, "You should definitely buy a house here. It's the best decision my mom ever made." So they smiled, and they were like, "Oh, really? What's so great about this place?" And without missing a beat, he said, "The schools." So at that moment, I thought maybe I should disclose I'm on the school committee, and this was not a paid advertisement, but I let him talk instead. And he told them there was a lot of really great stuff about the town, 4th of July parade, Christmas in the square, the restaurants, the shops. It was a great place. He said, but it was really the schools that made the town so special. He had told them that he had said he wasn't an athlete in a town that's full of athletes, but he found music and drama. He told them he wasn't actually the best student ever, but he gained a lot of confidence in his classes because his teachers were so supportive. He told them that he didn't always have people to sit with at lunch, but his counselors always made room at their table for him. So it was so amazing to hear him explaining this to these strangers, things that he had never expressed to me, but more importantly, things that he never had a chance to express to you. So on those days when your students don't seem to be listening to what you're saying, or you read criticism on social media, or there's a fire or a flood at your school, or the school committee makes some policy change that you don't like, or the budget gets cut, or any of the things that happen on a daily basis for educators that make you say, why am I doing this job? I hope you will listen to the other voices that may not yell the loudest, but are still very clear. The voices of the PTOs that plant flowers and provide mini grants to the schools, the voices of the booster parents who raise money for uniforms and instruments and lights and microphones, the voices of parents who volunteer in the classroom and the library, the grandparents who show up at the recitals, the plays and the games, and most importantly, listen to the voices of the Evans out there who didn't say it to you, but are saying it about you. What you do matters, and you are appreciated, you are respected, and you are very much admired. So thank you for all you do on behalf of our students and our town. I would like to introduce Dr. LaBillawa now.
Welcome back, everyone. I am incredibly excited to be here to give you, to recap with you all of our accomplishments from last year, give you a preview of what's to come, and also present to you a conversation that we're starting today that will continue for the years to come. I think it's fitting to begin with a review of our mission, who we are as an organization, and what our purpose is each day in our schools. The mission of the Hingham Public Schools is to provide challenging and comprehensive educational programs in a safe and supportive environment, enabling all students to develop the knowledge and skills necessary for success as local and global citizens. This mission is no small task, and it requires the efforts of everyone in this room, everyone in our community, and everyone at a state and local level in government to ensure that we are provided the resources for success. As we look back and celebrate the achievements of last school year, there were a variety of professional development offerings. We did live through some pretty significant infrastructure challenges, the closing of Foster School and a fire at Hingham High School. And then coupled with the flood at East, I hope no one's biblical, because the locusts are due any day. We saw the implementation year 2 of our computer science initiative, and we will be providing a presentation on our efforts at the November Mass Association of School Committee and Mass Association of School Superintendent Joint Conference down at the Cape. We also saw the launch of year 1 of computer science immersion across our classrooms. We went into year 1 piloting of a multi-tiered model for social and emotional supports for our children. We saw tier 1 piloting in K-5 and tier 2 piloting across K through 12. Our work on developing standards-based report cards across the elementary level continued, as did the expansion of our efforts to effectively map and articulate our curriculum programs. We revised our bullying prevention and intervention plan, which is about to launch for public comment, and we implemented a revised district curriculum accommodation plan. And this is not even touching the work that happened every single day in our classrooms with our students. As we look ahead to next year, I hope you once again find engaging and relevant professional development offerings through our PD model. We will see year 3 of our computer science initiative launch, year 1 rollout of social and emotional supports for students, and the initiation of a multi-tiered model for academic intervention at K-5 and implementation and development in grades 6 through 8. We will also be establishing an elementary conferences working group, a group of elementary teachers to examine parent-teacher conferences and how they're structured in our calendar. And we will see the establishment of a pre-K through 12 technology committee to update our K through 12 technology plan and to also initiate the rollout of a new district website, which is tentatively set to launch January 1. These things aside, it's time to start a bigger conversation as a collective community. That conversation will focus on equity. Some may be asking, why are we starting this conversation now? What has occurred in the environment in which we all live and work, which has prompted us to initiate this district-wide conversation? First of all, we've seen a significant shift in the attitudes and beliefs in the larger culture, which are finding their way into our classrooms. We have seen some critical incidents that have occurred throughout the district relative to race, relative to socioeconomic status, and we have students telling us quite clearly they don't feel safe in our 4 walls. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a challenge we must confront head on. It is our mission. As we begin, I think it makes sense to first establish what do we mean when we say equity. If we look at the dictionary definition, equity is defined as a justice according to natural law or right, specifically freedom from bias or favoritism. Essentially, educational equity is the equivalent of fairness. However, I don't know if you're like me, I'm not quite sure what that means. Fairness relative to what? Are we talking about equity in outcome, equity relative to resource allocation, or equity relative to achievement? We're not quite sure. I'm sure most of you have seen this graphic before, which attempts to differentiate the concepts of equality versus equity. When we talk about equality, we talk about giving everyone the same thing and expecting equal outcome. When we talk about equity, we talk about providing each individual person, student, including our staff, exactly what they need to find success day to day in our school environment. When we think about educational equity, there are two key dimensions that we must keep in mind. The first is the concept of fairness. Fairness is ensuring personal and social circumstance do not prevent the attainment of academic potential. Part of our goal as educators is to support each and every student in achieving their potential. The second key dimension that is essential when talking about equity is inclusion. And I don't mean special ed inclusion. The concept is much broader, and it refers to setting a basic minimum standard for education shared by all students regardless of background, personal characteristic, or location. In our discussion of equity, there are two kinds of equity. We have vertical and horizontal. When we talk about horizontal equity, we're really talking about the equal treatment of equals. When we talk about vertical equity, we're talking about the equal treatment of unequals. As we begin this conversation at the building level throughout the year during professional development time, we will be engaging in a critical analysis, sort of a self-assessment of how we view access to our programs and offerings through both horizontal and vertical equity. We want to be thoughtful of socioeconomic factors, race, gender, disability. This is not, and I want to be clear about this, this is not an issue that's specific to Hingham. In fact, when we look at the scores, educational scores in wealth-distributed countries, what we see is the United States lags, where if it's hard to see the graphic, but if you look to the far right of that progression line, you'll see the USA. And you'll hear also a lot of talk about the efforts and the achievement in Finland, right? And we heard about the trips to Finland to view the educational programming. I want you to notice Finland is a country with low income inequity and high scores. So you'll see them situated right at the top left is Finland. It's not something we can control. I'm not suggesting that we will begin a conversation to fix income inequity in the United States. What I am suggesting is we initiate work that begins to examine our practices to ensure, regardless of income, race, socioeconomic status, gender, or disability, all kids find access. Another way to look at the same issue is that when you look at educational equity, and these are for our countries who are members of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the higher the score, the greater the inequity in performance of kids from high socioeconomic backgrounds and low socioeconomic backgrounds. You'll notice the United States and some of Western Europe in the dark blue. In those dark blue countries, we see the biggest gap in the performance of kids from high and low socioeconomic environments. If we look at our own data, we see significant discrepancies in the achievement of students who are high needs, who are English language learners, who have disabilities, and the one we don't talk about a lot because the subgroup is so low we don't report the data is students of color. As I present the issue in front of us today, I also want to explain, so now what, right? We've all established that the gaps exist, and now what do we do to begin to examine how we can improve our practice to ensure that regardless of race, gender, socioeconomic status, or disability, all of our students can find success. We will begin a comprehensive examination of our district design. We will be looking at our academic selections and offerings to ensure that we are offering selections that reflect the students who sit in our classrooms. We're going to ask ourselves the question if whether some of the issues relative to this gap is due to structural issues. We will also begin an examination of our practices. We will look at and ensure the establishment of an intervention and support system, strong home-school partnerships. We will focus on a celebration and not just giving it lip service, a true celebration of diversity. Through a celebration of what makes us, of our differences, we become unified behind a common vision. We will engage in some challenging conversations that will challenge preconceived notions of privilege and race. All we ask is that you come as open and willing participants in the dialogue. We will also examine the allocation of our resources. We will look at our personnel selection and recruiting to ensure that we make conscious efforts to recruit and employ a teaching force that is reflective of the students of which it teaches. We will also examine our funding allocation and sources to ensure that we are adequately funding the kids who need it the most. All for what purpose? Our discussion throughout the year, we hope, will culminate in a district-wide equity and inclusion plan, which will be written through collaboration with everybody sitting in this room, and hopefully will launch in June of 2020. I want to thank you for your time and your attention this morning, and I hope you join me in the conversation to come. Dr. Austin.
Thank you, Dr. Lavillois. Now the task of getting mine back up there. So I take full responsibility if something happens technology-wise. I take full responsibility. I'll blame someone else. No, we won't. We'll find it. There's a couple of things I want to do. First of all, thank you, Dr. Lavillois. I think that's a topic that is incredibly timely today. I know it's very meaningful to all of us who think about where we're all going in the future. And it really dovetails nicely into what I think the start of the year and really our progress together as a team. There's a couple of things I want to do. First, I always begin the year with a thank you. So I'll thank you first. This is the first job I've ever had where somebody didn't say, that's not the way that Dr. Gallo did it. So I'll thank that. It's always hard being in that. When you replace somebody that has been here for such a long time, and has left such a long mark on this district, the incredible work that she did, I'm honored to be here in front of you. I want to thank her publicly to all of you, and I would assume, I hope that she watches this morning. Maybe she won't, who knows? She's probably seen a lot of them. But at the same time, to thank her, I had the absolute pleasure of sitting with her for 2 weeks at the end of the school year. And I find her an absolutely fascinating person who has an incredible bank of knowledge about where education has been over the span of 5 to 6 decades. That's awe-inspiring to me. And I look forward to, in the future, I always told her that I would take her to breakfast 1 time per month and really pick her brain, because I think that she has an incredible gift that she can pass on to not only me, but to all of us. And she has been doing that for years. So I will thank Dr. Gallo personally today. So the next thing I do is I generally will thank everyone else who's done things over the summer. And here's what I always do. I always forget someone. Always. So, and I will always get a reminder later to say, hey, you know, you didn't thank technology, and you didn't get that done by being there, for, you know, and not thanking us. So here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say thank you to everyone who has done things over the summer, but particularly today, the food service. Thank you for putting that out, that spread out this morning. Thank you to food service. I'll say thank you to the custodians and the crew that has gotten our schools to an incredible level of shininess, for lack of better words. I used to work for a superintendent who had and this was something he did every year, he took out a white glove. And at the beginning of every year, just before school started, he would take the white glove and he'd go into each school and he'd find a register somewhere to wipe that white glove around. Now, I'm sure that he found a place that did not have any dust. But it's something that we need to take pride in. And something you'll hear me say over and over again, I hope, is that we need every single person, and we need to value every single person that works with us. There is not one person here that is more important to the function of a school department than anyone else. It absolutely does take our custodial crew to get our schools ready. It takes our bus drivers to get our children safely to school. It takes our food service to feed them. It takes you to teach them. It takes our administrators to provide leadership in our schools. And it takes our central office to ensure that our company continues to run and is managed financially, et cetera. So thank you to everyone for all you do and being part of our team. So the challenge is, I never watched, this is one thing I did. I think people who have come to know me a little bit, I did a tremendous amount of background research on Hingham. Because 10 months ago, if somebody said, where is Hingham? I have no idea. All right, does anybody not know I'm from Maine? I don't have a Maine accent. I don't think. I can, but I don't. Anybody else from Maine? I know Colin is. It's my friend Colin. Where is he? Is he like not here? Colin, are you serious? You sit out back? Are you hiding? I said, you and I are it? We're the only Maine people here? Wow, that's remarkable. That's remarkable. So I can start with the story. I don't speak with a Maine accent very well, or often, I should say. I don't think I do. Do I have a Maine accent? I don't think I do. Now, you guys have an accent. And so when I went home once, I went home one day during just a couple weeks ago, and I said, Boston. And they went, what? What did you say? I said, Boston. And they said, that's not the way we say it up here. I said, you're right. So there's a couple things I watch out for. I don't speak with a dialect of Maine. And two, I learned something a long time ago. And if I do this, please remind me. Tony, it's your job. No hands in the pockets. So I was sitting there giving a big presentation on a budget one day, and I had a gentleman in the audience, and he spoke with a Maine accent. He's a thick Maine accent and lived on the same family farm, had 185 head that he milked every day. And he came up to me and he says, Dr. Austin, he said, that was amazing. He said, that was pretty good. But he said, you've got to do one thing for me. I said, what's that? And he says, take your hands out of your pockets. So I try not to do that. So Tony, if I have my hands in the pockets, you're it. And if I do it, you're in trouble. If I see it on camera later, you're in trouble. All right. So it's a little bit of a challenge today, too, because you've had the same person doing your convocations for 18 years. Long time, almost 2 decades. Right? And so I haven't watched one of those. So I have no idea if I'm doing it right or not. But I'm going to assume I'm doing okay. All right? So keep laughing. At least, even if I'm not funny, just laugh at me. I'll feel good about that. All right? And so I'm going to bring in my own flavor of things, as you see. The first thing I'm going to tell you is that through all my research and thinking about who you were and about HP, this whole public school system we have here in Hingham, et cetera, I'm not an expert on this school system. I don't have a plan in my head that says, here's what they're doing wrong, and here's where we're going to go tomorrow. That's not there. All right? So for the next few months, what you're going to see me doing is doing a lot more research. I'm going to be asking you questions. I'm going to be spending time in your classrooms. And I'm going to be spending time in your schools. And I'm going to be spending time in the community asking lots of questions about what you think we do well. And about those things that are challenges to us. And about what you think are priorities. Because it is a collective unit that we are that really will guide our future. Now, there are certain things that are non-negotiables to me. Equity is one of them. We have to ensure that. We have to ensure that students come in and feel safe every single day, that every single student that walks through our door feels like this is where I belong. that I'm part of here and that somebody inside of that building cares about me. I don't think that's too much to ask. And I also agree with Jamie that this is not unique to Hingham. I can guarantee you that from my previous district, they're sitting there just like you are this morning, talking about the same issues. And I'll guarantee you that in California and Florida and Texas and New York, they're talking about the same things that are important. Because we are at a time when we need to address difficult subjects together. And so I'm going to be learning about those things with you. So here's the thing that most people want to know. So I'm standing in front of you. Some of you have met me, some of you not. So the first two questions that I hear everybody is, who are you? And so I'm going to attempt that a little bit later. I'm going to attempt to tell you a little bit more of who I am. You've read my resumes, or if you haven't, you're the only one in the entire town of Hingham. All right? All right? But I'm not going to go there. I'm going to tell you about me, about what makes me tick, because I think that's how we connect with each other. All right? So at least you'll know that. But here's the other thing that I'll say, because they'll ask you, who are you? The next thing is, what are you going to do to me? Right? And that's a common thing. Well, here's what I'm not going to do. In my quick time, I found certain things that you do really, really well. The academic program is extremely good. All of these things, athletics, etc., are extremely good. I have no desire to touch any of that. So please understand that I am not here to undo all that you have worked so hard for. So that should be a collective sigh of relief, hopefully for everyone. I'm not here to do that. We had a very moving, thank you, June, for that presentation and for our foreign language department. And I learned quickly this summer about what Hingham Strong means. It's a term that we hear often. As I walked into a funeral that no superintendent wants to do in their first few weeks of school. But to see the red ribbons in honoring Hingham, to honor your friend, your colleague, that means so much to you, is really about Hingham Strong, isn't it? That's incredible to be part of. We're proud of that. And I can't wait for all of us to even become stronger than we are today. I said often during an interview that you know, if I put 100 people in a room, and as much as we do well, would anybody have any suggestions for improvement? If there's 100 people in a room, there would be 100 hands up, right? You're going to have that opportunity to talk to that. So that's some of the work that we will be doing. Now I'm going to try to, as I said, I'm hoping to do all the things right today as we do Convocation, but I know something that you haven't done before that's kind of been a tradition of mine over the last several years. And that's to honor the folks that have been here at milestone kind of times in their lives. So I'm going to ask Dr. Lavilwa and Chair of the School Committee, Michelle Ayer, to join me, and we're going to honor we're going to have awards, little awards for people who have reached milestones in the amount of time they've been here. I think that was the surprise you said would come to them, June, but I had a little bit of surprise for you. And so we will be doing this for as long as I'm here, honoring those who have completed 15 years, 20 years, 25 years, 30, 35, anywhere, and I don't think there's anybody over 35. All right, at this time. There might be, but if I missed it, we missed it. So that's something we're going to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to call up people. All right, you've already passed it. So here's the thing I'll say. So this is new to you, right? I don't think you've done this before, right? So this is new. So it doesn't recognize that this is only the time that you just completed those milestone years. So I don't want to leave somebody out to say, well, I was here 42, why didn't I get one? I do it at milestone time, so we understand that. So what we'll do, we have a little certificate for them. They've got a little pin with their years on it that we have, so it's a new tradition. So join me as we call up individuals. Come up and get your little certificate and your pin, and we'll thank you personally. So Jamie, if you want to start, we'll go with, we can do one.
We'll begin with honoring those celebrating 15 years of service. Natalie Allen. Heather Anderson. Barbara Buckley. Patrick Callahan. Catherine Campbell. Julie Chandler. We have a bit of a backlog. Wait a minute. Jenny Sina. Sarah Daly. Kathleen Dwyer. Laura Falvey. Leslie Flanagan. Jessica Gall.
So if I give anybody the wrong certificate, just exchange it. Thank you.
June Gustafson. Mark Huntington. Wes Hutchinson. Kimberly Kerr. Jill.
Jamie, we got to slow down for a second. This didn't work the way I hoped it would be.
Sorry, I was pretty far back.
We're going to stop back. All right. Did anybody have Laura? I don't know if we didn't have it or not, but we'll get you their certificate. All right. I'm sorry. All right. I'm going to stop just for a second and catch up. Which one is Leslie? This is for me, really, about really catching names.
Way to learn.
All right. Did we mess up? You know, this is the habit. I used to know everybody's name, so I wouldn't have done that. Thank you. Well, there you are. Okay, now if I got Jessica, where is Jessica? Thank you, Jessica. Nice to meet you. Mark Huntington. There we are. Thank you, Mark. Wes Hutchinson. Thank you. Thank you. Kimberly Kerr. Thank you. All right, I'm back on track, Jamie. Thank you very much.
Jill Livermore. It's a graduation.
Run, though, really. Gives me a chance to catch up.
Lori Lucas. Madeline Martin. There she is. That's Madeline. That's right there. Yep. Monica Matthews. I don't see, Julie McDonough. I didn't see, there's no, that's not Monica. Oh, that's Julie. Yeah, that's, that's Julie. Yeah. Megan Melanson.
Now, I know that name. I've met Megan. Thank you.
Jennifer Newell. Betsy Orcott. And Marnie Papone. I shouldn't have said and because there's more, sorry. We're still in 15 years. Karen Shaw. Dorothy Turner. Jennifer Walsh. Congratulations to all of our faculty celebrating 15 years of service.
So it always reminds me of that Will Smith part that says, I saw that playing differently in my mind. I really did. It didn't go as smoothly as I'd like. I failed to realize that I didn't know anyone yet. And so I apologize if you got the wrong, but I think we got everybody right. If it's wrong, let me know, we'll fix it. But, so here's the good news. There are fewer than, the 20s are fewer. It was not as bad.
Well, we'd now like to honor those celebrating 20 years of service. Gretchen Amante. Elizabeth Costanza. Jean Dugan. Where's it done? Alan Friedman. Peter Healy. I'm going to pause because there's 3 coming at once.
You gotta catch it. You gotta catch it. Yeah. All right, I know this is Peter, right?
Yeah. You're doing a great job.
Thank you. I think we have Alan, right?
Very good.
Alan, congratulations.
So much.
Yes. And Jean.
Brett Johnson. Kevin Lally. Maynard Morin. Margaret O'Donnell. Catherine Ryan. Robert Weiss. Stephanie Woodward. Congratulations to all of our educators celebrating 20 years of service. We'd now like to recognize the 2 educators celebrating 25 years of service. Paula Flanagan. Susan Lumna. Congratulations to both Paula and Sue on your 25 years.
Well, thank you for enduring that. It's so important to celebrate our successes, and I'm always amazed as I see the numbers of years that people put in. Now, I come from a place that when I looked at how many new educators we have, Maine is really struggling. I would turn that many people over in a district of 1,200 students. So we don't have a lot of turnover, and I just recognized that as I was giving out the awards. So thank you for your service. It's incredibly important, but it also speaks to the value that you have in Hingham Public Schools and the product that you put out year after year. Our success of our students really does belong to you, and so thank you once again. And so we'll get into some of the things that I told you about. I really want to tell you a little bit about me today. And that's normally not the way I would start things, but I think that's what probably a lot of people want to know. So hopefully I will do that, and at the same time inspire you and think a little bit about Maine. So Colin, this is for you and me today. All right, this is going to be about Maine today. And those are the things that I hold very dear to me. So the first thing I want to say is I got some quotes that I really inspired me. Today is not just another day. It's a new opportunity. It's another chance. It's a new beginning, and we need to embrace it. When I told you I was excited, I don't think I slept more than 2 hours last night. This is an opportunity. Every day, and we heard that from June when June spoke and said, this is a new day, it's a great day. But this is an opportunity for us to start new, as we do every year. And I think that's probably the freshness that we come to our opening day ceremony with. We don't have to worry about, oh, God, they didn't do their homework, how am I going to do this? I have an acting out student, I've got this, I got so many things I got to grade. Today, that's all gone. All you have is that new day and that new opportunity for all those dreams that you have. And I have them too. All the things that I want to do. We dream big, right? All the things that you want to accomplish this year. Because that's where it all starts, is in your head about things that you want to accomplish. And in the end, we sometimes accomplish all the things that we want, but rarely. But we strive to do those things. So my first goal is to at least come to you and give you something inspirational about who I am. And I hope I accomplish that today. If not, I'll do my best. So today is not just another day, it's a new opportunity, it's another chance, it's a new beginning, and so we need to embrace it. I want to talk a little bit about transition, and I've been in one for the last 10 months. I had no idea when I met that person from NESDEC, I didn't even know what NESDEC was, the person who ran your search, Carolyn Burke. I met her at a conference in Maine, and she gave me a handout and said, we have several job openings in Massachusetts. And a 15-minute conversation turned into, you know, she said, I think I got a job that you might be interested in. And she said, Hingham. And I said, what? What's that? And she told me a little bit about the community. Now, here's the funny thing about this, just so you know. The applications were due in less than 2 days from that time that I spoke to her. So I had to think about that, and I went home, and I actually didn't even go home. I actually took a little computer and went to the lounge at a conference, at a superintendent's conference. Never do this, right? And I applied for Massachusetts certification. And then I went home and I said, hey, honey, I just spent $100 on Massachusetts, on Massachusetts certification. She said, you did what? Massachusetts? We're not going to Massachusetts. We want to move south. I said, it is south. But she said, I have palm trees in my mind. And I said, well, maybe we'll find one, but we didn't. We found some sand, all right? But and so she said, but it's still cold in the winter. I said, but not as cold. You only had 1 snow day, right? I had 8. So, and I'm not even going to talk yet about how you're going to call a snow day. Let's not go there. I don't want to talk about that today, all right? I just don't want to talk about it. Snow happens. Snow happens. And no, I don't like calling it the night before. I know everybody likes to hear that, but I don't like to. I've really been made a fool of when I've done that, and I've called the night before, and the next day it's 40 degrees and raining, and everybody's like, what were you thinking? It happens. But let's talk about transition. So many speak of opportunities. When one door closes, another one opens, but rarely about the hallway, which is the transition. the in-between where you are and where you're headed. The hallway doesn't have to be scary. Dark, endless confusion. It can be a space of massive transformation, great memories, and peace. Well, I say that I'm in transition, but so are you. You're used to one thing happening. You're used to one leader who's been here for many, many, many years. And so you're in transition too. But I want to tell you, it doesn't have to be scary. All right, we can really embrace this and enjoy it. And it can be something that takes us to a place of great peace, of great joy of working together. And so I look forward to that transition. I'm so glad that school is starting because I feel like maybe the transition is coming to an end. Now it's time to get to work. Right? And so that transition is really important to recognize, but to also embrace it. So I told you I would tell you a little bit of my story about who I am. The things that you don't see written on a resume. And I'll try not to bore you too long with who that is or who I am. So I was born in Bath, Maine. Anybody ever go on Route 1 in Bath? I know nobody's from Maine, but everybody vacations there, right? If I heard one more person say this summer, hey, we're going to Maine next week. I haven't been there for a couple months, all right? But it's great. So Route 1, Bath, the city of ships, Bath Iron Works, arguably the finest destroyers built in the Navy today, and proudly. I was born to a mother who did not graduate high school, who contracted polio in high school, didn't finish, but proudly from Bath. My father was a farm man a farm boy, really, from the place that I just left. So I went to work in the town that he grew up in. Never do that. Well, I say, not in my position you don't want to do, because I was related to everyone, and I didn't even know it. But then sooner or later, then somebody would say, the first one I had was, hey, you have to do this because you're my cousin. I'm like, no, I don't have to give you that. All right, and I said, actually, that's probably bad. And so we were born in Bath, and then I actually, have anybody been on to Popham Beach? So I'm going to say things. I know, all right, Popham Beach, we got it. It's about the only beach in Maine that you can really go to. I'm sorry. There is southern Maine, we call that now northern Massachusetts, and Wells and places like that. But so I was born near there, and my parents had to move because I had terrible asthma. And so I was on the Kennebec River, which is where Popham Beach is and all those things. And so they moved to Brunswick. Anybody graduate from Bowdoin College? All right, we got some Bowdoin people. You at least know where it is. And so a lot of today, so for Bowdoin, you're going to get a lot of my things that we talk about today because it's really well connected. So I was born and raised in Brunswick. We're the home of Bowdoin College, and that's where I still call my birthplace and where I'm from. And Bowdoin has huge pines. If you've been to Bowdoin College, you know that's called the Bowdoin Pines, right? And I grew up in a very big sports town with Bowdoin, with Brunswick. Hockey was our thing. I know that hockey's not a big thing here, right? Yeah, I didn't think so. So yes, I grew up, started playing hockey at 4 at Sid Watson Arena. You ever go to Sid Watson Arena? I'm sure you have. And so those are the things I did. But here's the thing that I want to tell you about me. And so my family was very, very tight. Now, when I mean that is my mother was the oldest child. And so her youngest sibling is like 15 years younger than she is. So she was the oldest. And my grandmother was the oldest in her family. So many of my great uncles are basically the same age as my mother was. And so when we moved to Brunswick, I said that I had this allergy and asthma to cattails on the river. My grandmother actually gave the house to my mother so we could live to Brunswick. That's what brought me to Brunswick. But here's the funny thing is everybody, all the siblings lived on one road. So I grew up next to my grandfather, my uncle, my great aunt and uncle, my other great aunt and uncle, my other great aunt and uncle, and my other great aunt and uncle. All lived on the same road. And so Saturday nights, I don't know, does anybody do that still today? Saturday nights, they all got together. Right? Everybody got together. And I had a very musical family. So one of the things that you'll hear, and poor Pam has had to deal with it, I sing a lot in the office. And I think it was the first time that I played AC/DC and somebody came to me and said, "That's a first in this office." So Pam, I'm sorry, and she does get to endure some of the songs. What were we singing yesterday? I can't remember what we were singing. I can't remember what it was, but it was song, and she just chimed in now. I gotta love it. I don't say I sing well. I was actually a music major in college, and that lasted for a year, and I decided that was not my passion, nor was I really good at it. So you don't do those things. But yes, I'm very music inclined. But we had a musical family. So my uncle, one of my uncles played the banjo. My aunt played another aunt, she played the, oh my goodness, I just came alive, I'm sorry. Can everybody hear me okay? All right. So another aunt, my aunt played the piano, and somebody else played the drums, and that was Saturday night. And so the idea of family to me and relationships became really well ingrained. So what you'll learn about me is that I value relationships. My leadership is all about relationships, about building positive relationships with people, and about how we work together and how we interconnect as a family. So I grew up that way. That was important. And it's still important to those members that are left. Most are gone. My mother passed away in 2011, unfortunately. But that love of family and about the connections that we have became so incredibly important to me. So one of the things that you'll see with me, I'm kind of more of a storyteller than a story writer, but I also like to listen to people's story. Now, some of that is a little bit, for me, a little bit scary sometimes because I'm probably a classic oversharer. That can happen, right? And I probably am. But those are the things that are very, very important to me. And the other thing I say is patriotic. I was raised in a generation, as I said, with my mother and my great aunts and uncles that were all in the same place. Well, one of my uncles, Bill, was at D-Day when we stormed the beaches of Normandy. Another uncle was actually at Pearl Harbor when it was bombed. And another uncle was in the European theater during World War II. And so not only did we get together, but I heard these stories that were week after week. You heard the stories, and not the gory details of war, but the things that was meaningful to them, and about purpose, and about patriotism, and about service to others. And so I grew up that way. And those things are ingrained in just about everything I do. And I'm thankful for that. And so some of the things you're going to hear today, I'm going to show you some clips in a little bit about the things that are most meaningful, the things that the people that mean the most to me as far as leadership goes. And I think it really is a reflection of who I am. So I grew up that way, and patriotism and a love of history. One of the things that I continue to hear is, what brought you to Hingham? Well, really, once I started to do my research, the love of history. Because you have so much rich history within 5 miles of where we are, right? And you see it every day. So what's the first thing I go to? I go to John Adams and John Quincy Adams enshrined in there in the bottom of the church in Braintree, right? Quincy. That's right. Quincy. I really got this right. It's Quincy. I got it, right? Quincy. My wife works in Quincy. She loves that drive. So. Just kidding. Sorry, honey, if you're watching this somewhere. Just kidding. She started at Hingham. It was great. Then they moved her. That happens. So those are the things that really brought me here, this just love of history and just the rich tradition and the feeling that you've got here, the red, white, and blue striping down the middle of the roads. Those things, that the tradition of Hingham was so evident. And it was so easy to say, wow, I really like this place. This is really an awesome place to be. And so I wanted to say that my connection with my family really taught me that service to others, patriotism, and a love of history and remembering of history, and where history takes us and reminding us of where we're going tomorrow is so incredibly important not to forget yesterday, right? It's where we are. And the last thing I'll say is work ethic. My father, as I said, was a farm boy. He was not much of a student. And as he would say, he said, I'd walk in the front door and out the back. every day. You would have loved to have him in your classroom, not. But he got up in the morning and he milked his cows. And that still happens today, even though we're all mostly electronics now and we have automation and stuff like that with farming. Many of the students that I had just a few months ago would do the same things. They'd have to work in the morning. And they would come in and their jeans were covered with, well, I'm not going to say it. You know what it is. And the smell of farms permeated our high school. But what we talked about equity just a minute ago is really important. 75% poverty, give or take, in that region, and the scores and the performance that were reflective of that. And how we were shamed, I'm sorry to say it, shamed for being in a poverty region where students had a hard time figuring out where dinner was coming from, of if they had heat on at home, or if somebody was home, was their priority, not necessarily learning algebra. We should never be ashamed of that. We should never be ashamed of where we come from. And I'm sorry to say that we shame people, and that's just the way that it works sometimes, that somehow that equity to some doesn't mean equity. So that's important to me. So that's why equity is so important. I didn't grow up wealthy. I was not privileged. My parents worked hard. My father taught something to me very early, that you have to work hard every single day, and you do a job and you do it well. That's your job, no matter what it is. If you're going to be a ditch digger, then dig the best ditch that you can ever dig, right? There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with hard work. And so at 10 years old, I was delivering papers. I was up every morning at 3:30 from the time that I was 10 until I was old enough to get a regular job at 16. All right. My father was really helpful. He would say, if it's really too cold, I'll take you in the car. Now, his idea of too cold is it had to be below 30 below zero. So south would have been nice. And so, yes, he didn't have much. He would say if it's not below 30, and if it was 29 degrees, that was not enough. 29 below zero, you can go out and do it. But he taught me that work, and that you're taking on a job and doing it well was some of the most important things that you do. And I still carry that with me today. Now, I take it sometimes to extreme. I don't sleep sometimes. I work at home. I never leave my phone or my emails, right, Pam? It's always going. And they say, that's not very good, Paul. You shouldn't do that. And I do it. But that's the ethics that we have, and I thank my parents for that. My dad is still alive. He's almost 88 years old, on his own, doing well, ornery as can be. But I enjoy that, and I thank him for that. So they gave me those. My family, my background, gave me everything of who I am today. And I strive, and I strive to be better at those things, like all of you, and I need your help doing that. We are a team of people that support what each other does. So I think, one of the things that I want to do is share with you what my core values are. So my core values, and I thought long and hard about these, and the administrative team, the leadership team the other day talked a little bit about core values that we have. But my core values are integrity. I believe that doing things right, but more importantly, doing the right thing. Never forget that it's important to do things right, but doing the right thing is truly important. Respect. We treat others with dignity and respect regardless of the context. Regardless of the context. Sometimes that's really difficult. Sometimes we might disagree. Sometimes you might be angry with me, and you know what? Sometimes I might be angry at you. But that doesn't mean we lose respect for one another. I will demand that out of you, and you should demand that out of me. We respect. We respect every single person who walks through our doors. And finally, compassion. Concerned about the perspective and needs of others. We have a world today that sometimes lacks compassion for one another. It doesn't necessarily like diversity, something different, somebody else's opinion. And I'm not talking Democrats, Republicans, Independent. It doesn't matter. We all have our own biases. But compassion is what makes us tick. Compassion is what makes Hingham strong. What you saw this morning is compassion. And we will demand that out of each other. So when I tell you what my core values are, here's my expectation for you, is that when I don't behave that way, you need to call me on it. I expect that. Now, I'm not going to be up here and tell you that I do this every single day. I try. I strive for this. I strive to live my life, and everything I do and everything that I do in leadership is about this. So I expect you to hold me accountable. And I will hold you accountable. We've done some of that work in leadership team already and talk about holding each other accountable. But these are the things that I hold dear. So there are some things that I'm going to encourage you to do this year. I've been thinking long and hard. I guess I've been in education long enough to know our challenges. But some of the things that Joshua Chamberlain talked about are still battles we fight today. No question about that. Men lost their lives for this, and yet we still fight some of the same battles. And we have new battles to fight. We know one of our goals is to ensure that every student feels safe here, both in personal space, but also the spaces they come into. And I would encourage you as teachers that we must accelerate and advance. So I'm going to do the ABCs. There's only three. Doing well. The ABCs. We need to advance and accelerate our fight against discrimination, hatred, and violence. Folks, you have an incredible tool in front of you as teachers. We see our children. We need to teach our children that hatred and violence is not the way. We want to be safe as we walk through a building, or if we go into a mall or a movie theater or walk down the road. I think that's not something that we shouldn't ask of one another. So I challenge every one of you to advance and accelerate that fight. I challenge you to be bold, something that people have heard me say over and over again about being bold and courageous. I want to say thank you to Rick Swanson this morning, who texted me this morning, and he said, Dr. Austin, be bold and courageous as you speak this morning. And how much I appreciate that. It's working. But be bold. Be bold enough to speak for those who cannot speak for themselves. We are Hingham strong. I learned that this summer, thanks to my colleagues. We can be bold together, and we can speak for those who can't speak for themselves. We need to be bold enough to challenge destructive thoughts and ideas. Folks, we have the tools to change the world one piece at a time. This is not a Hingham problem. This is a world problem. And we all need to be bold. And we need to be bold enough to demand better from ourselves, from our colleagues, from our families. We need to be bold enough to be better. And finally, I say to be courageous. Have the courage to stand up for what is right. That's hard to do sometimes. It's not always what's right is not always popular, right? But I encourage you to have the courage to stand up for what is right and have the courage to do something amazing. I have learned one thing quickly by meeting so many of you. You are talented, dedicated, caring people. I can't imagine what lies ahead of us except for amazing. You have those tools. And I encourage us to keep those things in mind that we want to accomplish, that we're going to be courageous as we take on the year. So I want to encourage you as leaders. Teachers, you're leaders. It doesn't need to have a title. You're a leader. And as we hear from Harry Wong, the single greatest effect on student achievement is not race, it's not poverty, it's the effectiveness of the teacher. How important you are in providing leadership every single day, and I thank you for it. So the challenge ahead. So these are things, and if you heard any through my interviews, I talked about the 3 Ps. And so I challenge you, as hopefully you've been a little inspired by some history, but that we begin each day with a renewed purpose. What Joshua Chamberlain had was purpose. He understood what he was doing. You have a purpose. You understand, many of you know your why, of why you're here. So renew that every single day. Bring out the passion in yourself and your students. Be passionate every day, and your students will become passionate as well. Model positivity. Folks, I get discouraged sometimes by some of the negativity that just flows everywhere in this country. But we can be a model of positivity. And that's the one thing I will say, amongst many things that I like about Hingham, I've seen the positivity that you all have. And so I'm not saying that you're not positive, but continue to model that as you've done. That is an important part of our work every day. And finally, remind yourself often of why you do this job. It wasn't for the money. It wasn't for the glory. It wasn't for the early mornings. It wasn't for the headache of correcting too many papers. It was because it makes a big difference. It is what our country depends upon, is educating our youth. There's nothing more important than what you do every single day. One of my favorite quotes, every child deserves a champion, an adult who will never give up on them, who understands the power of connection and insists they become the best they can possibly be. I know you do that every day. I just wanted to reinforce the power that you have as you stand in front of your students and with your colleagues. Finally, share a little bit of myself. I know why every single day I get up and do this. It's not for the politics, all right? It's not because the school committee tells me I have to. It's because of my granddaughter. And I have 7, believe it or not. I don't know how that happened, but they do say they know how that happens now. But she starts kindergarten on Tuesday. And I can tell you this. I wish she lived here. Because I've become so proud of what you do already that I would be honored if she would walk into one of your classrooms. And I wish for her a future, no matter where she is, that's not filled with fear or hatred or violence. That's who we work for. That's my why every single day, of why it's important, the job that we do. Michelle Eyre said earlier that people really truly respect you, and they do. That was another thing that drew me to Hingham. I watched school committee meetings. I watched people interact with teachers and how much respect you have. You've earned that, and you should congratulate yourself for that. Doesn't happen everywhere, folks. I've been at places where there's no engagement, where there's little, and in fact, I had a hard time passing a negative 0.10% increase last year. It's not true for you. You get great support from your community. They understand the big picture of why you're here. And I thank you for it. But let's not forget our why, and everybody has a different reason. So finally, I'll say thank you for allowing me to share something personal with you, allowing me to share just my own who I am with you, a little bit beyond the resume, allowing me to share just a little bit of Maine that's so important to me as well. And I encourage all of you to have an incredible and amazing year. Thank you.